Welcome to another episode of TaskHuman Talks. I'm your host and fellow wellness professional, Jamie Carroll. And today we have the amazing TaskHuman coach, Adrian Chance. Adrian is a health and wellness coach, a Christian life coach, personal trainer, and corrective exercise specialist. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You've got such an amazing story. So I want to dive right into that.
Okay.
All right, you've had some pretty massive health issues in your life. Um, cardiac arrest twice, I think. And you can correct me on this.
No
Oh, but
problem.
brain damage. I think you were considered dead at one point, memory loss, and a coma. What the heck happened?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Okay. So good question. Okay. So let me just start off by saying, so when you say I was considered dead, I want to clear the air out there and just say that
Yeah.
I wasn't thrown inside of a morgue or anything else like that. It's not that type of death. Okay. So medical death, yes. Medically speaking, yes, I was considered dead. So I went into cardiac arrest about 10 times. And so I'll go through a few of those. So back
Okay.
in, I guess it was September of 2012. I went to sleep like normal, and my wife woke up in the middle of the night and found me dead, unresponsive, lips had turned blue, and eyes are bulging out. So she didn't know what was going on. I had no pre-existing conditions. So basically, she called 911, and by the time the emergency response team came, I had already gone 10 minutes without oxygen, and so that means
Wow.
you may not wake up at all. So they rushed me
Wow.
to the hospital, got me stabilized. They kept me in a coma because I was already in a coma, but they kept me in a coma to kind of basically preserve my vital organs because they just didn't know.
Okay.
After doing dozens of tests, getting the CDC involved, there were no answers. There were just answers with
Wow.
what I didn't have. And so just as easily as I went into that, God actually woke me up amazingly.
Wow.
And the doctors were amazed. They said, you know what, this is my wife they're talking to. Say, Mrs. Chance, frankly, I've never seen someone coming in deteriorating so quickly on Monday, and then they are released on Thursday out into society. So it didn't take long, but some of the problems I did suffer was I dealt with short-term memory loss. So I lost all of
Okay.
the previous 3 months memories.
Wow.
And I was in a continual loop of saying the same things. So I was looking at my arms that were pretty badly bruised. My chest had been
Okay.
damaged because I
Right.
believe some ribs were broken from CPR,
Right.
which I'm thankful
Yeah.
for, not excited.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And so I kept going through the same loop of like, wow, honey, look, my arms, what is going on? What happened? And
Oh,
what's the matter
wow.
with my chest? And so she would tell me, and then 3 minutes later, I would say, what is going on with my arms? So it
Oh my
stayed like
gosh.
that for a while until sometime in the middle of the night, just maybe 2 weeks later, God revived my mind and I started getting my
Uh-huh.
memory back. And so I started understanding what was going on. So
Wow. So let
that's
me ask you this
yes, go
question
ahead.
too. So
Uh-huh.
you go into the hospital, you're deteriorating pretty quickly, and then when you left that Thursday, you were no other conditions? Like you were just able to walk out besides the memory loss?
I was able to walk out, but I was feeling extremely fatigued because my body had
Okay.
gone through such a shock. So no, I wasn't running
Right.
around running marathons. No,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
extremely fatigued. I
Okay.
just felt like I was just run over by a Mack truck. I mean,
I bet.
so
And you
yeah,
were pretty healthy before this incident happened,
yeah,
right? I mean, were
absolutely.
you already personal training and
Oh,
get
absolutely.
into fitness and all of that? Okay.
Absolutely. By that time, I'd been personal training for, I guess, 15, 16 years.
Oh,
So,
wow.
that was my passion. I'm like, hey, what in the world is going on here? And
Yeah.
so for me, it left a lot of questions. They released me saying that I had an adult seizure that likely
Okay.
would never happen again. So I wanted to get ready to go back to work because as a personal trainer, if you don't service, you don't get paid.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks later, I was released to go back to work. But the night before I was released, it happened again. And so my
Oh,
wife
wow.
found me again in the bed, and they took me to the hospital. And this time they said the first time you had about a 5% chance to live. The second time they gave us less than a 1% chance for me to survive because they said when you have CPR, not CPR, but cardiac arrest that fast out in the field with and I went also around 8 minutes without oxygen that time as well. So
Wow.
they didn't have high hopes. And so once again, God delivered me, raised me up, healed me. And the doctors was like, I just don't know what to say about this guy. But
They
they
had
said,
no clue what was going on.
none whatsoever. They're like, we have no idea. We've never seen this.
Wow.
But what they decided to do was to go ahead and place a defibrillator in me and say, okay, so whatever happens, this will help him in the future.
Okay.
And so we went home, and I was eager, of course, to get back to work. I didn't have the memory issues like I used to the first time. So I was excited. Okay, I have the answer.
Yeah.
and so it was 3 weeks later, which happens to be my 40th birthday.
Okay.
I was shocked 4 times throughout the morning, early morning, and to the point where, now listen to you, everyone out there, I want you to look at this. I know you like to experience things. You don't want to experience a shock, okay? Because this felt like, you remember the movie Aliens, where they have the monster inside you and it bursts through your chest? That's exactly what it felt like. It was painful. So I went to the doctor, the hospital, and they said, we don't know what's going on again. And we just need to go ahead and test the device and get you on some type of heart medication to help with this, because this is not normal. And so the manufacturer of the device was there, which is always the case when they go through these procedures. They tested my device, and the guy said, let's just stop it because he's not responding. And we have never seen anything like this either, as far as how the device is responding. So they put in another device that was a defibrillator as well as a heart rate monitor.
Okay.
Sorry, not a heart rate monitor. I'm sorry. It's a pacemaker. And then they also placed me on heart rate medication. And that helped me throughout the process. So for over a year, I was fine. I felt great, didn't feel any type of shock issues. But you've known me enough, Jamie, just spoken with me enough to know that my personality is not very muted. I like to talk. Well, my personality was extremely muted at the time. And so my wife was saying, this is not my husband. This is not normal. And it was just making me feel sick. So my doctor decided after a year, let's go ahead and get off the medication. The device is likely helping you. And so we got off the medication, and I was fine for at least 2 months. Then in January of 2014, I was shocked once. February, I was shocked again, and I started doing baby aspirin because I'm like, okay, let's figure out if this helps. The next month, in March of the next month, I was shocked again. And so they placed me on a beta blocker. And then I was shocked 3 times in April of 2014. And they said, okay, you know what? We need to go ahead and take a look at everything, re-diagnose them. So they re-diagnosed me from what they thought it was what they call lone QT3 syndrome, which means that's nocturnal death. And they re-diagnosed me with something called Brugada syndrome, which is a very, very rare disease. And really in the US population, they may have 200,000 people that may have it at any given time. And if you have it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it activates. So it causes the lower chambers, right? It causes
and that's like a genetic thing, right?
It is. It is.
I saw that somewhere.
It is a genetic thing. And so it's so rare that even a lot of the doctors were saying, okay, I remember this in school, but please remind me about what this is, because they just don't really deal with it here. And so, so what ended up happening was that they re-diagnosed me with that. They placed me on special medication that would address that. And since then, I've been okay.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. Now I have to ask this question. It's just coming to mind. When you were, those first 2 massive times when you had to go to the emergency room and you were non-responsive, did you, people will say, like, I had a near-death experience and I saw a light, or I remember this. Did that happen to you at all?
No, because not at that time. I did have a dream later on that I was basically in a dream, and God was actually taking me around, showing me different things. And so it's interesting because when that dream, he was just sharing different things with me, with saying that, Adrian, I want you to, I need generals here to actually help with this kingdom. Do you want to be a part of that? And I was just like, yes, I'll do it, Lord. I want to do that. And so it was at that moment I woke up, and my wife knew something was different, because that's when I really started getting my memories back. That was at first time that I did that,
Wow.
that first incident. And so she said, I noticed a marked difference, and you just started remembering things. So it was, but as far as having the near-death experiences inside the hospital, no, I just woke up and I'm thinking, why are people in my bedroom?
Right.
What is
That's
up?
crazy. That is so crazy.
It is.
So, since your diagnosis, what besides the medication that you're on now, have
Mhm.
you had to change anything else? Like, have you made any lifestyle changes when it comes to your fitness or your eating or your sleep or
Right.
anything like that?
Now, good question. So I would say after the third incident, when I started getting all of the shocks on my birthday, I started developing post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
And my wife developed her own because we would go to sleep, but she would leave the light on because she couldn't trust that, hey, he
Right.
will go to sleep and he'll wake up. Well, once I
Yeah.
got the defibrillator in, the one that was working, she started going to sleep and I started staying
Okay.
awake because I got shocked and I don't want to feel that again. And
Right.
so I started dealing with insomnia, and I felt like, once nighttime came around, it was hard for me to sleep, but I can sleep throughout the day. So I started switching my days around because I didn't trust myself at nighttime because it always happened around the same time. It's kind of like one of those
Okay.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger movies.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like, no, I'm going to stay awake. but once the medication kind
Yeah.
of leveled that off,
Okay.
I've been fine. I haven't really had to change anything else.
Okay. Wow. And so is there anything that you can't do, or you can basically do anything?
I can basically do anything within reason. And so my doctors, it's funny when I go and see my electrophysiologist, I sit in the waiting room and I'm 48 years old now. And so
Yeah.
I look around and you have 92-year-old individuals. So I'm the young puppy in the room. So
Right.
my doctor's
Yeah.
like, look, I usually have to encourage people to exercise. You just do your thing and just be mindful. Don't go overboard if you don't need to, but just do your
Right.
thing. So that's the only thing besides I can't have grapefruit, which for some reason
Interesting.
deal. Yeah, right, exactly. I'm like, I like grapefruit, but okay, sure. I don't need to try it and
Yeah.
experiment and see if I
Right. Yeah.
really can't have it. So I took that off my diet just in case. All right.
That's so funny. Of all things, grapefruit.
Right. Right. It
Wow.
actually impacts the medication for what I understand. So I'm
Okay.
just like, hey,
Got it.
whatever. I'll do something else.
Does anyone else in your family know that they have this as well? Has anyone else had this experience?
Yeah, so no one has had the experience as of
Okay.
yet, in period.
Okay.
But one of the things that happened is that we had to go ahead and get everyone tested. And so we
Yeah.
just did a rallying cry to get everyone tested. I have three sons, and they were all tested, and they
Okay.
all ended up being negative for the gene
Okay.
itself.
Good.
My
Yeah.
dad ended up being positive for the gene. He's on
Okay.
medication. My sister ended up being positive. She has a defibrillator. My brother ended up
Okay.
being positive as well. He has a defibrillator. My aunt on my dad's side also has a defibrillator now that she tested positive as well. And
Wow.
I have a nephew and a niece who tested positive, and they're actually taking medication as well right now. So,
Wow.
yeah, I like to share my family traits, apparently.
Yeah. Right. No, no
Why not?
FOMO going on where you are.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to kind of shift gears and talk about
Okay.
your faith in God because you have a very strong faith in God.
Hmm.
Has that relationship changed since all of this happened? Can you share us more, or did you have a strong faith before?
Right. So I did have a strong faith before, but it's one of those things where you look at it, it changes in a sense that it deepens even further. And so,
Yeah.
for me, I was experienced with reading the Gospels, reading all of the different miracles that Jesus performed, and all of the different miracles that were shown throughout the Bible itself. It's one thing to read it; it's another thing to read others' experiences. But it's a different thing when you actually go through it yourself and you're actually
Yeah.
the product of that miracle. And so, for me, it changed everything in a lot of ways because I can no longer trust in myself, whatever false dependence I had on myself and what I could do because I was considered healthy.
Yeah.
The doctors, they showed that they didn't really know what was going on and they were limited in their
Right.
scope just based on what it was. And really, it just made me just stronger in my faith to be fully dependent on God and deepen my relationship with Him because he was this didn't take him by surprise. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's been a crazy roller coaster ride, but I would not change it for the world.
Ah, wow. Thank you for sharing that story
Yeah,
with all of us.
yeah, no
And
problem.
speaking of your faith, you're also a Christian life coach.
Yes.
What? Okay, so tell me more about that. You're trained in Christian coaching. How is that different than, other life coaching? Like, what are you helping people with?
Right, right.
Who are you working with?
Good question. Okay, so I work with Christians and non-Christians alike, like as far as coaching is concerned. It's just that with in both individuals, you work with a lot of the same tools. You want to use open-ended questions. The
Yeah.
client, you want to work on whatever their goals are. All of those different things. You want to deal
Okay.
with passions, their experiences, also deal with their values, all of that.
Yeah.
And so the difference between what separates Christian life coaching from regular life coaching is that while the client is at the center of everything, in Christian life coaching, Christ is at the center. And so
Okay.
the client himself or herself recognizes that there's a plan that God has for them. And
Mm-hmm.
my job is to help them to go from where they are to where God wants them to be, rather than going from where they are to where they want to be. And so,
Okay.
yeah, so in doing such, if a person came to me and they were interested in Christian life coaching and they had a Christian background, uh, my job is to basically encourage them to move away from what their personal goals are and move towards the customized, personalized plan that God has for their lives. So I get
Okay.
excited
Beautiful.
about this stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. I want to hear more about that. So how are you, um, what kind of tools are you using to help them with that process of like moving more towards, from where you are, more towards where God wants you to be? What does that look like? How are you
Right.
determining that?
Good question. Good question. So what I'll do is we go through and we can go through a set number of exercises where they can actually sit back and just really discover how God has created them and made them. So what we deal with
Okay.
oftentimes in our society is that we look at what's working out there and what's the best, and we want to try to emulate that personally speaking. So with
Okay.
this, I really want to strongly emphasize, hey, you've been created different. You have different skills. You may not be able to dunk the ball like LeBron James. That's okay.
Right.
God,
Yeah.
you have a different plan. All right. That's okay. And really cultivating those exciting greens that I call them in your life, those things that allow you to actually have energy, because God gave them to you for a reason. And so I help them to define what those are. And then I happen to
Yeah.
look at, okay, so let's look at your history. Let's look at your life and see where God has spoken in your life and how he has actually used or utilized those particular strong points that you have, those particular values, so to speak. And then from there, we can figure out, okay, so what if you feel God's calling you to do? What are those things that you get energy from? Where is the big problem in the world that you see? And where do you fit in line with that? And how does God play a role in this whole thing? So it's a number of different exercises that I go through, and I'm just giving you a very condensed form
Yeah.
of that. But it's a number of
Right.
different
Absolutely.
exercises that I can take a person through, where by the end of it, they have a real clear vision of where God is calling them. They have an understanding of what their role is in that whole plan, and they have an understanding of what their next steps should be as they go forward.
Awesome. I love that. And if someone doesn't have a faith in God and doesn't even believe in God, are you still working with those people?
Oh,
Are you?
absolutely.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
it's just, and
Yeah.
it sounds like it could kind of be a similar process almost
Yes.
to
Yes.
helping them. Okay,
Yes. Yeah,
awesome. And
it's a
then,
great question. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So
yeah,
I have clients both, once again, those who are Christians and those who are non-Christians. And so
yeah,
there are different aspects that we work with. A lot of the things pull together like you're talking about.
yeah,
But it's those who are Christians that they look at, okay, so what is God telling me about all of these different things? And I want to help them with that. But yes, I work with
yes,
everyone.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. What does your own self-care routine look like these days?
Good question. So exercise is important for me. So I want to
Yeah,
make sure that I exercise several days a week, minimally, and do some form of exercise. And
okay.
so that's something that's a requirement from my wife as well, because she knows that I get grouchy if I don't. So
Yeah, yep.
she's like, please go exercise. I'm like,
I can relate to that.
okay, all right. So you feel me. Okay, all right.
Already did my workout today,
There
so
you
I'm in a
go.
good mood.
I see that. Okay, so one of the other things that I do is I try to get some type of quality quiet time for myself, so I can do a lot of self reflection. And in doing such, it helps me to really be able to concentrate, get away from the fast paced world out there, and really concentrate on what matters, and settle
Yeah.
in with either reading, doing devotionals, or just observing nature itself, and just seeing, oh wow, look at God's creation. I love this. So just really
Yeah.
contemplating a lot of different things. And the last one, which is it's a little different, but that's okay. I like to do
Okay.
bargain. I like right. Don't worry. I like to
I
do
can't wait for
bargain.
this.
Right. I like to do bargain shopping. Okay. So I get excited
Okay.
about finding deals. Okay. So for all of you guys that need deals, come to me. All right.
Oh my gosh. He'll help you move to where you want to be in life and also help you get a good deal along the way.
I like your marketing.
Okay, wonderful. And you're a dad too, which you've already touched on.
I am.
To three boys,
Three
say?
boys. Three boys.
Okay,
Yes.
amazing. And that must be such a pleasure for you in your life to have three sons. How, like, being a coach and doing what you do, how does that play into your family life? Or
You know,
does it at all?
that's a good question. It does, because it helps train me on how to speak to my kids.
Yeah.
Because I can be the dictator. That's what was in my mind at one time. But I find that, oh, I have these coaching tools. Maybe I should use those. And
Yeah.
so it's helpful, because it really helps them to feel empowered as kids, to feel
Right.
like they're part of the process as well. So it's really training me, because I don't want to talk to my clients saying, hey, this is what you need to do. Or
Yeah.
as opposed
Yeah.
to
Right.
really just coming alongside them and helping them to kind of just discover what the plan is for them through just
Right.
nice questions, selective questions, and
Yeah.
positive affirmations as well. So it's been a nice
Awesome.
training ground.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to touch on too was for other people out there that are living with a chronic condition, or,
Mhm.
one of the things I hate is, labels. Like people have these labels where they
Ah,
have diabetes or, cardiovascular disease or all these things. So
right.
anyone else that's living with a chronic disease, what would you say to them? Or do you have
Ah,
any advice or any recommendations on getting through life knowing that they have this chronic condition that they'll
right.
have?
Right. So I think about this when I think about this question. I think about what I think I would have benefited from in the beginning had I known. And so
Yeah.
there are probably three different areas I would look at. So the first one I would say is live life based on your new normal versus where you were at one time. And so it makes sense when you look at it from a different standpoint. As a personal trainer, I work with men and women, and so oftentimes I'll get men who come in at 60 years old and say, "Hey, I want to get back to where I was when I played football." It's like, okay, when did you play? When I was in little league. Well, you're 12 years old. That's a little different, but we can try to
Yeah, that's a
get you
great point though.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so if
I love that.
you can look at your new normal, then it takes the pressure off of feeling as if, man, I'm so far behind, because this is your process. And that takes me to the
And
next. Oh, go ahead.
well, let me interrupt you before you get to the
Yeah,
next
go
one.
for
That
it.
could be true too for anyone who's wanting to start like an exercise program, like you said, an exercise program, or
Absolutely.
like start eating healthy or doing whatever. When you take it all the way back to like, oh, what I was doing when I was five,
Right, right.
you're not there. You have to always start from where you are now in this
Exactly.
moment. And so that's beautiful. I
Exactly.
love that. Okay, what's the
Exactly.
next one?
Well, I would say don't let the disease define you. Okay, because oftentimes you mentioned it before, like I have such and such. Well, that's true that you do have it, but that isn't you. It enhances who you are, but it doesn't define who you are. And so I found that to be so empowering once I was able to say, you know what, this is just a part of who I am, and this is just a
Yeah.
part of me, but it doesn't define who I am. And it kept me empowered as a result of that, so I can move forward. Uh, and and so the last one I would say is, okay, so I want to be delicate when I mention this one.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So don't allow someone else to hijack your progress. Okay, so
Mm,
oftentimes there are a lot of well-intentioned individuals who will come in and say, well, you should really be further along. Well, no one has your same background. No one is experiencing your same experience. Even if they have the same disease or diagnosis, they don't have the same background, experiences, psychologically, mental clarity of whatever's going on, family
Yeah.
dynamics. And so it's very important for the individual, I would say, to look at your progress as being your progress, and what steps forward is a positive step for you, and how long that will take. And once, if you can abandon yourself to that, it makes the progress so much easier. As a Christian, I love God. I love going to church. But after my last event, when the first three came along, I didn't go to church at all. And
Yeah.
part of it was not because I didn't want to worship, because I was worshiping God at home, but because I was so overwhelmed with having PTSD. No one else knew that I was staying awake till 3 o'clock in the morning. No one else knew
Right.
that I was, I was having, I hear a bang in the room and I would jump around. No one else knew that I was leaving burners on in the middle of the night because I was just like, oh, I just felt like cooking and stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, I needed to take time away and go along with my own progress, whatever speed that
Mhm.
was. And so I just encourage others to do the same as well.
I love that. I'm writing all these down.
Okay.
Love it. Okay, so you are obviously online too as a TaskHuman coach. So anyone that is, looking for a fitness coach, struggling to get and live the life that they were meant to live, reach out to Adrian. Who else are you helping on the app? What kind of people are you working with?
Well, okay, so it's that's some of those who may have stress management issues or want to deal with self-care as well. Weight loss is one of those as well, and just lifestyle change as well. Just really wanting to make sense of what's going on in life and have a
Yeah.
positive perspective on things and changing that. So that's pretty much the ones that I generally deal with right now, and I actually have been helping.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. So if you guys are looking for someone, make sure you check Adrian out. You can find him on the TaskHuman app. And before we leave, I do want to ask you one more question. Is there a tool or technique or anything that you use for yourself that you're using with your clients that you want to share with us? Just something that helps you along your journey?
Yes, yes. So I
Yeah.
would say I have two forms of medicine, okay, that I give. All right.
All right.
And the first one I would say is laughter. Find something to laugh at all the time. As you can see, it's not wasted on me. I do that. and,
Yeah.
and
We love to laugh when we have our conversations too.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And I say that just because it's important to laugh with all of the stress that's out there, but also don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. Make yourself the key role or the star of the show as well. So
I love it.
that's one. The other one is having a positive self-talk, just making it a habit to have positive self-talk, because there's so much negativity that is out there internally as well as externally. And if we allow ourselves to actually embrace that, then that will transform our lives in a different way. And so I just prefer to go ahead and empower people to say, hey, have positive self-talk. Be your own cheerleader, okay? Because
Yeah.
you can create the world that you're looking for based on that positivity that you're looking at and that you're trying to express to yourself. So,
Oh, awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so
you're
much. Thank you for
welcome.
sharing your story and a little bit more about you. Thank you to everyone that has been listening. Remember to laugh even at yourself and to stay positive. Stay positive with your self talk and be your own cheerleader.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk next time.
All
Thanks,
right.
Adrian.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.